Roch Kubatko of MASNsports.com. Check him out. The School of Roch, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day. He's also the king of Twitter, and I know that because he told me that. Now, we know Dan Duquette is the master at adding depth to the organization, especially pitchers. He loves to collect pitchers. Now, Joe Saunders is coming back to the organization. I know he's going to AAA Norfolk, but what does this mean down the road about Saunders possibly coming back here?
It's really interesting. When we heard that he was released, I said, watch, he's going to sign with the Orioles. That's what happens. Old Orioles, they never die. They just come back to the organization, and they're reinvented. They actually had talked over the winter about signing Saunders when he's a free agent, but only as a reliever, which is interesting because he's got 229 career Major League games, all as a starter. The Orioles thought that should be behind him now. He wasn't ready to give that up yet. He's since been released twice this summer, most recently by the Royals. Dan Duquette called his agent again, floated the idea, look, maybe it's time now for him to transition, not just reliever, but kind of a lefty specialist role. Left-handers hit .242 against him in his career. This time Joe was open to it, agreed to it. That transition will take place at Norfolk. He's going to report there on Monday. I don't know if it'll be a pure Clay Rapata type lefty specialist where you face one batter and get out. I think it might be a little more than that, but it's still going to be bullpen. It's still going to be where the matchups are favorable against left-handers. If we see Joe Saunders this season, it'll be in September when rosters expand. You know, we helped him in the playoffs in 2012. He won that wild card game in Texas, and everybody said, why is Joe Saunders starting in Texas? His numbers are terrible. And, of course, he won. That's why Buck Showalter's the manager, and we're not. He may be able to help this team get in the playoffs in a different kind of role. It's an experiment, but they're not afraid to experiment, as we know. They've converted guys to relievers. They've lowered their arm slots. They've done a lot of that sort of thing. They're not afraid to experiment.
Well, and the Orioles don't need him to be Clay Rapata because they also have Clay Rapata back.
Exactly.
They brought him back to AAA Norfolk, so no reason to have two. They may as well have Clay and
right.
Joe. Now, Chris Davis is not in the lineup tonight. I realize James Paxton is a left-hander, but he's making only his third start of the year and his first since April. Spent 4 months, better part of 4 months on the DL. Why Chris Davis getting a day off tonight?
Yeah, and he's never seen the Orioles before. I think it's a variety of reasons, but let's be honest. First and foremost, it's the slump. I mean, Chris is struggling. He hit 175 in June, 167 in July. If he was swinging a hot bat, I think there would have been a way to get him in a lineup tonight. He showed up early again today to take hitting in the cage, the indoor cage. I heard yesterday Nelson Cruz and a couple other guys were here at noon hitting in the cage. I'm guessing Chris was one of them. So these guys are scuffling right now. They're not just sitting around taking it lightly, I'll be fine. They're here early, extra early, to work hard. And Chris is working on his swing mechanics today. So I think Buck just wants him to focus a little on that, maybe give him a little bit of a mental break. So I think anybody that's watching can see that Chris is pressing a little bit right now. And Paxton is a tough young lefty. There's only one left-hander in the lineup tonight, and that's Nick Markakis. You have three of them on the bench. So that's another thing. And I don't think Chris is 100% recovered from his flu. Brace yourself. Buck said that Chris is coughing stuff up.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry, but yes. So he's not 100%. So you factor all those things in. This just seemed like a good idea to give him the night off. Not completely off. Buck said, hey, he's a nice weapon to have on the bench now. We could see him pinch hitting later. He's been known to come off the bench and, hit one out. So maybe that happens tonight. But he's got to work on that swing. He's really, really fighting himself right now.
Well, I did see the King, Terry Crowley, in the Orioles clubhouse before the game. I'm certain those two probably at least talked, if not got in the cage together. Now, the trading deadline came and went 4 p.m. on Thursday. Now, you wrote today the Orioles had a deal, or they thought they had a deal, and then they didn't have a deal. What was up with this Drupal Cabrera?
Yes, it came really close, apparently. I had heard a few days before that they'd at least checked in on him. And, you never know what that means in that kind of situation with the deadline. All right, checked in. It's a favorite little cliched phrase. Well, they did more than that, apparently. They were talking seriously about acquiring him. And right at the deadline, Buck had said, look, we might have one more deal here, right around 4 o'clock after they already acquired Andrew Miller. And he said, it's not going to be anything that's really going to rattle your cage. Well, I think this might have been a cage rattler. I don't know. But the Orioles were very close to getting a deal done. Then the Nats stepped up and sent Zach Walters, an infield prospect, to the Indians, and the deal was done. The Orioles were kind of left on the outside. Dan Duquette won't talk specifically about players or negotiations, but he did say he would be open to an offensive upgrade if there's somebody there without sacrificing defense, which is a really key component because they love the work that Scope and Flaherty do at second base. And it didn't work out. I just found it interesting that they were in talks and that they thought at one point that they may actually get a deal done right at that 4 o'clock deadline, and it fell through.
Well, there are a number of reasons why he'd be attractive here. He's a switch hitter, and he could become the backup to J.J. Hardy. He's a shortstop. He would have played mostly second base here, but that certainly would have been somebody to upgrade what you're looking to do offensively. But I agree, you better play defense or you don't play for Buck.
Right.
Everyone knows that. Now, tonight here, there's a real nice touching story centering around the first pitch, and you know all about this. What's going on the field tonight?
This is amazing. It's School of Rock night here after my blog on MassiveSports.com.
You have a night?
Yeah, I had nothing to do with it. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. It's my readers, 40 or 50 of them figured, hey, if we're going to sit around talking baseball at night, let's actually do it in person. And they met up, most of them meeting for the first time. They met at a place called Dempsey's. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Who?
Bacon on a stick. I'm all in. And met. Exchanged gifts. They had drawings. I got a few gifts, really touching. And Cardiac Scott on my blog had a heart transplant last year, and everybody was so supportive. He was like family to us, and we never even met him. Everybody changed their avatar to a heart symbol. Well, he's throwing out the first pitch tonight. Somebody had suggested it. I passed it on to the Orioles. They said fantastic. He's getting ready to do it. He's been practicing. He lives in York, PA, 60 feet 6 inches, throwing a ball to his son. And it's just a nice touch. If you're going to have a night like this, he was the appropriate guy to throw out the first pitch. It really is touching that a guy who's virtually a total stranger basically became our family, this community that we have with this blog, and he's very excited.
See, if I knew what an avatar was, maybe I'd have a night. See, I got to get with the lingo here.
Get with the lingo.
Kubatko, check him out. He's the king of Twitter. Just ask him. School of Rock at MassivSports.com.